the myth of preference. The interracial series that me and my counterpart will be doing will be 4 or 5 parts, so I don't want to go too long tonight. I was jotting notes and I was taking it all in, and I was thinking of some of the conversations that I had today that sparked this whole idea that we had, and I couldn't sleep without getting it out. So I'm getting it out. I will try to be brief, but I at least want to give you enough to know just the groundwork of how I feel about things, about interracial relationships. For one, the elephant in the room. As I said previously, I am a black man. My wife is Caucasian. Yes, I'm married to a white woman. Some of you love it, some of you hate it. I'll be honest. The people who have a problem with interracial relationships, I kind of lump these people into two groups. And if I'm talking to you, I apologize, but that doesn't mean we can't change your mind. We will work through it together. Okay. Those two groups of people are this: you're either ugly or you're just miserable. I know that's a really simple way of looking at it, but let me clarify that for just like 2 minutes. Let me clarify, okay? Um, all of the attractive people I know would never in their life say, "I will not be physically involved with such and such type of people." And the reason for that is because attractive people get hit on by attractive people. So, like, if you're a good looking white man, if Rihanna or Megan Good approaches you, you're not, like, race doesn't become a part of that. That's a beautiful woman talking to you. You know what I mean? Uh, if you're a beautiful black woman, I don't care how much you think you hate black men being with white women, but if I don't know, think of a really good looking white guy. What's Thor's name? Liam Hensley, I think. I hope I didn't say that wrong. If that guy approaches you in the street, there is not one part of your brain that's going to fix your mouth to say, "I would, but you're white and everything." Like, that's just, it's nonsense. Uh, the whole idea that there are people out. For one, I'm married, so it kind of doesn't apply to me. But let me think outside of my married brain, like if I'm a single guy. Um, the thought of me boxing myself in to one type of woman and one look of woman, it baffles me. I don't understand that. Um, I'm not one of these people who was born in a town and grew up in it and stayed there his whole life. It's just not a thing for me. I've lived, I want to say, in 7 or 8 states, and been to Europe, and I've seen way too much of the world, and even that isn't a lot. But compared to your average American, I guess I've seen way too much of the world uh, to think that a person should box themselves into that type of situation. Like, you may be a white woman listening to this. There could be a black man or a Puerto Rican or a Filipino or a Korean man who absolutely worships the ground you walk on, and you don't even know because your eyes are closed to it. And instead you go home every day to a guy who probably, not even probably, that's a terrible thing to say, who you may, depending on your situation, you may not want to be with him. It may be based on convenience. You may not be attracted to him, yet you've decided, well, my family likes him and he's white. Deciding to connect yourself at the hip with someone who's you'll never in your life be fulfilled. You'll never be completely happy. And I just used, a white woman as an example. That could be anyone. Like, I have family members, females, beautiful black women who are single and have no reason to be single, except for the fact that they are stuck in that mindset. And I know some of it has to do with geographics, where you live. Maybe it's the population and how it's laid out. It could depend on what lives in your city, what races, who, and how many men, and all that stuff. I get it. There are different variables, which I'm going to touch on some of those here in a second. But yeah, I have family members who there's no reason for them to be single, and it's just like, the typical thing. Why can't I find a good man? Well, where are you looking? And if it's just in your neighborhood, but you go to work every day, and there could be a white guy there who absolutely just desires you like nothing else, may be capable of treating you better than you ever thought you could be treated, but because your eyes aren't open to it, it'll never happen. And I just think people need to wake up, stop being so shallow, and stop thinking that deciding to, that's a dangerous thing, to decide to only be with one type of person. Like, if you're one of these guys who's like, oh, I only want a 5'8" redhead with green eyes, like, good luck with that, man. Like, you may die alone. You know what I mean? But I start into all that, and I ramble on with all that, and by starting out saying my particular situation, because today I had a conversation. I'm not going to name the names of some of the people who were talking, but it was good. It was smart people asking questions, and people love to ask me the question, like, they go, do you prefer white women? And I think it's hilarious. The reason for that is this. I am way too heterosexual to only be attracted to one type of woman. Like, I'm attracted to women. Who I'm married to is just because I'm married to her. Our paths in our lives crossed, and we are where we are, and we're happy, and she makes me happy. But it's not like I didn't seek out my wife. You can call it divine intervention, that whole, we're made for each other thing. Sure. But I think that to go along with that, part of that has to be to have your eyes open and your ears open, and to the opportunity of certain things happening. Like, had I had the attitude of, I will not talk to a white woman, I wouldn't be with who I am. I wouldn't have the children that I have. I wouldn't have the life that I have. But when people ask me that, I immediately laugh, and I'll tell them there is no such thing as a preference. And people always get baffled by that, right? I don't know how many people would say that, but I know in my mind, I think that way. People think it's odd. Maybe it's unique that I think there's no such thing as a preference, but let me try to explain. For one, just a base example. Let's say you are born and raised in, I don't know, Southside Chicago, and you're a woman, right? Let's say you're a black woman, and you're from a 95% black neighborhood. You've never really been around any other races or belief system or any of that. Let's say you go to college and you get a job offer, and you have to move to, I don't know, Singapore. Let's say your job sends you to Singapore for like 4 years, right? You do realize that you would end up marrying a man from Singapore. Like, as much as you think growing up in your little neighborhood in whatever corner of America you're in, now I'm talking to all of you listening to me, wherever you're at and however you're growing up, you have to stop believing that, like, your little town is all that is, because you don't know what life is going to dish you out. You can go through 20 or 30 years of saying, I refuse to talk to such and such type of person, this and that and the other. And then before you know it, some weird circumstances happen, and you live in a place where you're surrounded by that, and you find yourself falling in love with one. Like, that's how life works. Really quick though, because we're 12 minutes in, and I don't, like I said, this is just an introduction to the series that we're going to be starting next week, just on interracial relationships, the good, the bad, the ugly of it. Some of it'll be brutal. Some of it's going to be, kind of touchy and people will get their feelings hurt. Thankfully, myself and my partner, my guy who's going to be doing it with me, we don't have any feelings, so that's beneficial for anybody listening. Um, I'm going to leave you with a math problem, and you can do the math for whatever area you live in. And I really want to know the answers. Please put it in the comments. Whatever. Just these are round numbers, but I just want to show you the example of how my mind works when it comes to dating, relationships, and what I think other people should be. Excuse me. Let's say, and I'm going to speak for my demographic because I'm a black man. Whoever you are, do it for however yours applies and where you live at. But let's say I live in a city in surrounding area, and the population is 1 million people. That's a good number, right? Sure it is. Well, let's say that out of that million, it's a little bit lower than the national average, which generally in America it kind of is for black population, because our pockets are like Chicago, Atlanta, LA, New York, DC, major metropolitan areas. Anybody who lives outside of like one of the 10 largest cities in America, where the average, I think, black population of America is a little over 13%. Well, those areas are a lot more than 13%. In other areas, it's the opposite. So let's say I'm in an area of 1 million people and it's 10% black. Okay. So obviously that leaves us, we have 100,000. There's 100. That means there's 100,000 black people if you live in this type of city. If there's 100,000 black people, how many will we say are women? I hope that you guys are thinking along with me. These are numbers I come up with. I would say it would be around 60,000, because generally in decent sized cities, there's more women than men. So let's say it's 60,000 black women. Okay. How many of those women are grown and of age? About 25,000? Okay. We're at 25,000. Now, I am a man who has a career and stuff to do every day. And if you are one of these people who has a routine where you wake up and you go to work and then you come home and all that, you basically live your life in like a 10-mile bubble. I think we can all agree on that. Yeah, there's the weekends and stuff and the occasional stuff after work where you got to go shopping or something like that and go pick up groceries. But for the most part, we live in a 10-mile bubble. So any person that you run into, speak to, random chance occurrence, running into new people, it's going to happen basically within 10 miles of where you live, maybe a little bit less, but I wrote 10 just for the sake of argument. Okay, so out of those 25,000 grown black women that we said in a 10-mile radius, how many of them live there? I still think I'm doing this number kind of high, but I'm going to be generous. I say almost a third. So I'm saying 8,000. Out of those 8,000, how many of them are in relationships? I said about 3,000. So that would leave you with 5,000. Now, out of these 5,000, again, still eligible women that I would have an eye for, right? So there's 5,000. Now, how many out of those 5,000 have no problems with like a crazy ex-boyfriend that I have to deal with, because I'm not a drama guy? Hopefully, if you're a guy listening, you're not a drama guy and you think about these things. Like that beautiful woman who you're talking to, who you really, really want, that's fantastic. But you need to get it. Ask questions. Because if you watch the news, our nation is rampant with weirdo men who have no problem going to prison over a woman. Don't be involved with a woman like that. So anyway, I digress. There's 5,000 women, according to these numbers we're going through together. How many of them have no crazy ex problems? How many of them have no money and or credit issues? Money and credit is important. If you're 19 or 20 years old and you're listening to this, maybe you don't think it is, but anyone who's an adult, they know. Like, if you're 30 years old, 35 years old, you fall in love, you get married, and then you see the credit report and you know it's going to take 10 years to fix, you know right then you're not going to be able to get a house together until you're 45 years old. That's not okay. Avoid those relationships also. Hey, feel free. Ask somebody what their credit score is on the first date. They may think you're a lunatic, but if it's good, they'll appreciate it, right? Okay. So anyway, how many of those 5,000 have no problems with a crazy ex, no credit issues, and they're career oriented? Because a job is important nowadays, right? I know some guys who have women who are at home and they don't do anything. I'm not one of those people. To each his own. I'm not into it. And a woman who doesn't have a plan for us. You want to know what's sexy, ladies? To know that you can feed yourself. Like, that's one of the first things that attracted me to my wife when we started dating, is knowing that she was educated, she had a job, and she had a career, and she didn't need me. This is something that I'm going to say, and you'll hear it come up later on. This is only the second podcast, so we'll keep talking. I'm going to be spilling my guts over the next however long the Lord will let me talk to you guys, right? Relationships are about need and want. I'm into somebody who wants to be with me, not need me. And same for my wife. My wife knows I don't need her, I want her. That's how you have a healthy relationship. As a matter of fact, if you're listening, ask yourself that question. If you're in a relationship, do you need that person or do you want them? Because one is a good space. One is appreciating, there's a desire, there's a passion behind all that. Need is when you're ready to move on, you're already eyeballing somebody else, but you won't because you don't know how your bills are going to work. That's a need, and that's unhealthy. That's my whole ramble on just, I need a woman to be career oriented the way a woman should need a man to do so also, right? So out of those 5,000, all of those things, how many of those? I'd say 2,500. I'm going to be generous. I'm going to give you half. Now, out of those 2,500, how many of them do I find attractive? Because that's important, right? I'm going to say 1,000. Now, here's the part. Now that I'm down to this 1,000, which is a very small number, right? Now that I'm down to this 1,000, I have to do something that people don't want to do nowadays. I have to be honest about myself and take inventory. Out of that 1,000, how many of them find me attractive? Because I don't think I'm God's gift to women. I'm handsome, but I'm not burning down the woods. That's not my thing. But very few of us are. Most people that you see, you go, that's a good looking woman or that's a good looking guy, but it's not like oh God, I think every woman on the planet finds that man attractive. Like, I don't think that about myself. So if I'm down to 1,000, now I have to say, okay, we dwindled it all the way down. How many out of that 1,000 thinks I'm attractive? Let's say 500. And I may be being generous about myself. I don't know. Ladies like me. So I don't, I'm going to say 500. So in a city of 1 million people, once you go through all those numbers, and they're not exaggerated numbers. That's nothing crazy. If you listen along with me, if you go with the math, it makes complete sense. There are 500. Now, out of that 500, how many of them are not crazy? Because every woman knows a crazy woman, right? Just like every man knows like a crazy guy. Like every guy has a friend who he hopes is single forever. And whenever he has a girl, like you would never tell her to stop seeing your friend, because that's just disrespecting how things go. But you hope and pray that that he shows his colors early so she doesn't get stuck with that psycho. You know what I mean? I don't know, 500 left. How many of them aren't crazy? Let's say 450, right? 10% of that 500 is absolutely crazy. You know what? That's too little. Let's say 400. So there's 400 women that I can have out of a city of 1 million. If I'm doing this, I only want to talk to a black woman thing. If I really want to do that, like what? Where do you find those 400 people in a sea of 1 million? And that's just a town with 1 million. God forbid you live somewhere like Atlanta where, the issue there is, all those things I just pointed out. I don't. I feel sorry for some women in Atlanta. Like those guys you have down there. I don't know. It's like 10% businessmen and grown men. 70% gangster, and 20% men that want to be with men. Like it's that's a bad look. Look, when you live in something like that, you're trying to find your husband, your life mate. You may want to move. Wow, I've been talking for 22 minutes, but hey, look, I hope you went through that with me and got the math. Like I said, starting next week, we're gonna dive into it. Probably be doing 2 shows a week, at least one, but I would like to be doing 2, just while we're trying to build this whole thing up and talking to the nation. So I appreciate your ears. I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to the truth about Jesse that was posted. You guys have been great. You've been phenomenal. Again, if you're listening, you are the nation. I am the nation. This is the Faceless Nation podcast. This is the truth about everything. And today is a very, 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 very long introduction into the truth about interracial relationships and the myth of preference. Stay up, take care of yourself, protect your legacy, protect your success. Till next time.